I don't know. Loading. Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. My name is Carissa. I'm with Hillcrest Country Club. I think a lot of you know me from the courtyard or the 19th hole. Maybe you've just seen me kind of bopping around. Yeah, Hillcrest asked me to do these live tastings for you, and I'm super excited. I knew right away I wanted to do kind of like a geekier wine. And so that's what I have for you. Today we are featuring Evening Land out of Willamette Valley, Oregon. Specifically from the sub-AVA of Eola Amity Hills. So if you have Willamette Valley, there's a bunch of little pockets throughout Willamette Valley that are sub-AVAs, they're winemaking regions. And this specific wine comes out of Eola Amity Hills. I've gone tasting there several times. It's absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend going. And I've actually been to Evening Land itself. It's a beautiful, beautiful tasting room and gorgeous vineyards. So yeah, Evening Land is, well, I guess a little bit more on Eola Amity Hills. Eola Amity Hills is more southern in the Willamette Valley region. And since it is southern, it's a little bit cooler than the rest of Willamette Valley. And it benefits from something called the Van Duzer corridor. The Van Duzer corridor is this gap in the coastal range, and with that gap comes a bunch of cool breezes that blow over Eola Amity from the Pacific Ocean and really cools down those vineyards, and creating its own little microclimate in Eola Amity Hills. So it's one of my favorite sub-AVAs. There's a ton of history there, and we'll get a little more into that in a moment. So Evening Land is the little baby child of Raj Par, which is what makes this wine super geeky. Raj Par and Sashi Morman. Sashi Morman is a renowned winemaker, but Raj Par is that name on there that people freak out about. Raj Par is kind of a celebrity sommelier, if you're into that kind of thing. You can't be tasting wine seriously for very long before you hear his name sprinkled around. I've been following from him for years now. I have several of his books sitting next to me. And when I heard he was making wine several years ago, I freaked out. And so I'm super excited to share his wine with you guys. Raj Par started out in culinary school, actually, in New York. He went to the CIA there. And then he kind of decided, I like tasting wine a little bit more. And so he worked at Rubicon in San Francisco for a few years as a food runner, actually, and then just worked his way up really quickly into the wine world. And he was a floor somm there for a couple more years. And then he left there and he started working for Michael Minnis, a celebrity chef. If you follow chefs, you've heard of Michael Minnis. And he owns several restaurants as well. And Raj Par oversaw that entire wine program for years. And then he decided he wanted to make wine. He's very knowledgeable. He's very good at tasting wine. So why not have a go at the vineyards? So here it is, Evening Land Wine by Raj Par and Sashi Morman. It's a beautiful wine. It's very old world in style. Old world in the new world. I like old world wine. So yeah, it's a little bit special for me. This is really fun. I'm really excited to share it. And yeah, so to go a little bit more into the old world aspect of this, you'll see out of Evening Land a lot of Pinot Noir, which is what we're featuring today, in Chardonnay. Raj Par is big into Burgundy. One of his books, he talks all about European wines specifically. And so you see that called in here in Oregon. So he produces a ton of Pinot Noir in an old world Burgundian style. And you get that. This wine specifically is aged 12 months in neutral French oak and then 7 months in stainless steel, a very popular thing they do in Burgundy. And that is very present in the wine. American oak, you'll get a lot of vanilla and cola and cream soda notes. And this wine, because it's French oak, you get more baking spices. So I get a ton of cinnamon and nutmeg and clove, and but it still has those cherry notes and raspberry notes that a Pinot has. Absolutely gorgeous, can't see it, but it's this beautiful cherry red color in the glass. Um, yeah, and is old world style wine in the new world. And another aspect how he does that is Eveningland is 100% biodynamic certified and also dry farmed. And so there's no irrigation systems throughout the whole vineyard. They rely completely on the water from the air, water from the sky, um, as well as where they don't have irrigation systems, they do have chickens and other farm animals roaming around, creating its own little ecosystem on the vineyards. And I love that. It's very uh, sustainable thing to do. There's no like certification for a sustainable vineyard, but you could definitely consider them Eveningland that. So completely biodynamic. There's no filtering. There's no fining in the wine. So what you see is what you get. And no addition of sulfites either. I know some people have kind of like sensitivity to sulfites. You'll always find sulfite in wine. It just comes from the ground naturally. But people who are a little bit more sensitive to it, they don't add anymore. Literally, what you see is what you get, which is another reason why I love Eveningland wines and Raj Par's winemaking style. It's another callback to Burgundy, France, and they take their wine very seriously, and so does Raj Par. I also have with me the Chardonnay. This is from my own personal collection. I purchased several bottles of Eveningland wine when I went there, and I didn't open this one because I've already consumed my ready to drink bottles. I'm actually letting this one sleep. I know that sometimes people think that, white wines don't age that well, but because Raj Par's winemaking style is so old world in Oregon, it actually ages pretty well. So it's definitely drinking beautifully now. Like I said, I already drank my bottles, but it also, I believe, is going to age very well too. I follow the rule 6 when I buy wines. If you're just starting to grow a cellar, that's a really good rule. Buy 2 bottles to drink now, 2 bottles to drink in a year, and then 2 more bottles to drink even past that year. So yeah, and again, this Chardonnay is Burgundian in style. So if you like Chablis, this is very Chablis-esque. It has seen a little bit more oak than the typical Chablis, but it's French oak. It's not American oak. And so you're not going to get that buttery vanilla creaminess. It's more floral and a little bit more fruit forward, but it has that like iron richness from the soil. Eveningland soil is volcanic and it's called Jory soil, which is great for drainage, which is awesome because they don't have their own irrigation system. So the soil works very well there. Absolutely beautiful. And another thing I love about Eveningland is when I went there, they literally, okay, so I walked in and there was a whole line of glassware out for us to taste. And I noticed these glasses were a little bit different than I was used to. Normally we see Riedel glasses. They had these Zalto glasses and they're absolutely gorgeous. And now I own 6 of them. I fell in love with the place. I fell in love with what they're doing, literally revolutionizing how I drink my wine. Yeah, also the labels have these really cool little hand-drawn maps on the back of the vineyards. So really cool. They all have that, and these are their flagship. These are their flagship bottles. So it's what they make the most of. It's still small production. So Eveningland is considered a boutique winery, and that's probably what I'm going to show you all mostly. I want to kind of explore a little bit more of the boutique side of wine and bring that to your home. I think it's important to try new things, and it's important to support small wineries, especially in this time. So yeah, and that's what Eveningland is, regardless of the big names attached to it. It's still very small production. When I went there, I found out that it's so small production that the Raj Par is literally on texting basis with the tasting room workers. So There's about 6 people employed through the whole thing, which I love. It has a very close-knit family style feel to it, and I think that's very important. Yeah, so let me see here. Oh, I also wanted to mention another thing you guys can do since we're all at home and drinking wine. I printed off, well, I already had this, but if you go to the sommelier website, it's like mastersommeliers.org, you can print off these really fun tasting sheets. They're actually what we use when we study wine, and it runs you through a tasting grid. And I will kind of give you my own notes on this wine here in a moment, but I thought it'd be really fun if you went there and printed out your own and then kind of like got your own taste and then came back to the video maybe and told me what you found, what your tasting notes were. I think that's one of the most fun parts about wine is everybody gets something a little bit different, and honestly a little bit different almost every time. Wine's living, so it's always changing. So anyway, this wine to me is very bright. It's a very pure and clean nose, and that is very Oregon to me. On the palate, the fruit remains. So I get a lot of cherry, a lot of raspberry, and almost like, I don't know if you've ever made your own homemade grenadine before, but it has like this warm, fresh grenadine flavor to it. There's also an earthy quality to it that's very Oregon. Oregon has this telltale like irony mushroom thing that I always get on the nose and I always get on the palate, and that's there. It's not unpleasant. It just adds more to the wine. There's also a stemmy quality to it. So this wine is completely hand harvested, hand sorted, and hand destemmed. So, and about 90% of the clusters that go into the wine are destemmed. So there's still 10% of the stems in this wine. And I get that. There's a little bit of stemminess to it. And I love it. It provides a little bit more structure, a little bit more tannin. Pinot Noir is a very like finicky grape. So sometimes you lose some of that tannin. That's why a lot of it's kind of lighter, right? Smoother to drink. This is still smooth, but it still has some of that dryness that big wine drinkers look for. The body is very clean. It's very light. It's smooth. It's velvety. And I'm not kidding you guys. I wish you could see it. It's so pretty. I think it'll age pretty well. I have a couple bottles. I already drank this. I actually did a food and wine pairing with it. I did an herb and mascarpone roasted chicken with this wine. I know we're home and cooking now, so if you have a full chicken at home, get some mascarpone cheese and some herbs and put it in your chicken and roast it up, and it'll go beautifully with this wine. But it will age pretty well as well. I'd say about 5 more years in bottle. I wouldn't want to lose too much of that fruit. Yeah, it's a gorgeous wine. Let's see, I know I have more things to talk about. Oh, indigenous fermentation, yes. So this wine also, because they are biodynamic, organic, sustainable, responsible, Eveningland also does all indigenous yeast. So they don't add any extra yeast. The yeast that goes through the winemaking process is already there on the grapes while it's growing. And these grapes in this bottle come from the oldest vines in that vineyard. So they're 30-plus-year-old vines. And another callback to Burgundy that this wine does is they are actually Pommard clones. So Pommard is a little tiny commune in the Côte d'Or department of Burgundy, France. And they are clones from those vines, and they're 30 plus years old, so they've got some age on them. The rooting system is pretty down in there, which is perfect for vineyards that don't have an irrigation system. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to not have that irrigation system because a lot of vines are so young and their rootstocks aren't too far down, aren't down far enough. So yeah, Rajpar is doing things very well. He's making beautiful wine. It is ready to drink now, always, and it's also ready to drink in a few more years too if you have a cellar. He's also making Gamay. He makes all sorts of wines. But another thing that I enjoy about Evening Land is, so when you go to Burgundy, um, if you get a bottle of red wine, well, not if you go, even if you buy it here, red wine from Burgundy is always Pinot Noir. Always, always. That's it. If you buy a white wine from Burgundy, if you're drinking Chablis, it's always Chardonnay. So that's the two main grapes that they grow there. And then they also have, which I've already consumed, this was my Thanksgiving wine, but they also grow Gamay as well. So Gamay is Beaujolais. So if you buy a Beaujolais wine, you're going to get Gamay. And they grow that as well. And they're still experimenting with it. It's very bright and high acid wine, definitely cranberry turkey wine. So yeah, I love that they call on that old world aspect. Let's see, I know lots more about this. My notes. Well, I hope that you guys are interested in this wine. I know I love it. I was super excited to share it with all of you. I hope that you also learned a little bit about Raj Parr. Watch some of the Netflix on documentary. Watch some of the documentaries on Netflix. He's on like all of them. The Somme films, Sour Grapes. I know we're at home watching TV, so definitely check out Sour Grapes. It's a really cool like crime wine forged bottle documentary. He's in there, talks about a lot of that. And yeah, I hope this video found you all well and healthy. And also, if you are interested in purchasing these wines, you'll contact Jeff Walker at Hillcrest at his email. The Gamay is not around. The two that you can purchase though are the Chardonnay and is in the Pinot Noir, and I highly recommend both. I have both in my own home. Can't say enough good things about what Raj is doing and about this winery. Yeah, so thank you for joining me. I'm sorry this video isn't too much longer. Yeah, I wish I had a little bit more, but I hope you buy this wine and I hope you love it. And please report back on what you get on the tasting notes. And if you make the roasted chicken, I highly recommend that pairing. It was absolutely delicious. And I can't wait to hear from you guys. And I hope you all enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.